Welcome to part 2 of Poetry Works USA, featuring a conversation and reading by Diane Di Prima, noted beat poet.
I want to read, because I want to read one other little part from a little further in. About the war, the coming of the war. I explained earlier that my father's brother returned to Sicily just before World War II broke out, and my father's father stayed in America. So Giuseppe went back to Sicily, and Pietro stayed in America. And this came from my own memory. As I was writing, I would begin to actually remember things I could not remember so clearly before. And there's this quality in it that some is really remembered and some is more like a dream where you're partly reconstructing. So I told them that the subtitle of this book is An Imagination of an Autobiography. But this is partly, definitely from a picture that I had, clear in my mind. We've gone down to the boat to see them off. They are another part of the family. I understand this much, though I don't know any of them well, hardly at all, and by now the names are gone. My father's father was Pietro, and he had a brother Giuseppe. The war had come closer by this time. My father's father and his brother had come to America together years before. Pietro had baked bread and the brother pastries, and they had worked together for others and then for themselves. Now the war was very close, and Pietro's brother had decided to go home, to return to Sicily. He was leaving with all his family. The word that was being used was that the family was being divided. We went down to the boat, and I was full of excitement. The smells of the water and the dock and the bustle of hundreds of people. It seems to me we seldom went out, even then, me and my parents. Later it became obsessive. My father would never even eat in a restaurant. But now Pietro's brother was leaving with all his tribe, and Pietro's tribe had gone down to see them off. It seemed there were hundreds of us, hundreds of Di Primas. The air was rich with the soft sound of Sicilian. I was full of excitement, but I knew better than to express it. The air was also heavy with tragedy. This was a ritual we had all engaged in many times before, or so it seems to me now. Mediterranean or North African ritual, the splitting of a tribe. Pietro, my mother said, had, quote, chosen to stay in America. Cousins wept and wondered if they would next see each other across battle lines. It was not clear at that point, not clear at all what part we Italian Americans would play, how we would fare in the war, following the rules of some other nation, some other time. My father and his brothers would argue in the kitchen, offering to take each other's place in the draft. They might as well take me. I'm not married. I'm not even engaged. The rest of you have responsibilities. The counter-argument, they should take me. You are the youngest. It would kill Papa if anything happened to you. There was the fear they would have to fight their own people. A Mediterranean ritual, the makings of Greek tragedy. I know that now, but then I wondered at the grown-ups' insistence on tears. For me, the wonder was the sun, the open space, the smell of the docks, the size of that boat. It seemed to me that it needn't sail at all. As long as it was, Pietro's family could walk to Europe. A kind of floating bridge, black and trimmed with an orange red. The prow so high and black, the curve of it so right, made me feel full. Inexplicable the grief the grown-ups lived with. The light poured down. We sat on suitcases. We broke bread together one last time. A man I barely remember held me on his knee. So that's a little bit of this endless prose that I'm doing, and I would like to maybe take 10 more minutes and read to you a little bit from Loba and a little bit of relatively new stuff. There's one poem I definitely want to read you that I want to end with that takes about 5 minutes, so we'll stop with that. Loba came out in '78 in a book that's 185 pages, and it has been writing itself onwardly since then. And there's about another 140 pages to add to it when it comes out again, which I'm sort of vaguely getting ready right now. Part of the new part of Loba is kind of loosely based. I use myths in it, but I mostly use them very loosely, like they weave in and out. And there has been the sense of a hunt going on through a lot of sections. At first was the image in my mind of the wolf, the she-wolf, Loba, being hunted around the zodiac, which was around the 12 processes of the alchemical transformation. And then that moved into a lot of different hunt poems of different sorts, Tristan and Isolde in the forest and so on. And then it's sort of focused in like a zoom lens on the hunt of Psyche for Eros after he leaves, after she looks at him. But so there's a lot of poems that are kind of like poems of Psyche wandering through strange worlds and underworlds. I'm going to read one of those, but it's also just the strange world and underworld is just also San Francisco in 1993. And it's the same kind of world that I wrote The Neighborhood about, just seen through a different lens. And so this poem is called Ishtar I. Ishtar, you remember, was the goddess in charge of all the prostitutes in Babylon. That was a big job. Ishtar I. This was to a woman that used to hang out on my block and was a prostitute. Ishtar I. Deliberate as the shell of a body you offer ungainly on the steps, scratch of your voice in the shadows, 3 a.m., gold shorts and hot pink tights, high heels and that ravaged face. What are you selling anyway? Deliberate, your limbs dislocated, awkward from drugs, you caricature the human stream, enfold the secret essence, perfect, bittersweet, though it does to death. Oh, sister, softer than watered silk, gray, white, black shadows of your ebony skin, your heart, edible as chocolate. You enclose the prize, and you know it. Gate of death, encumbrance, golden morning of the world. You offer it like poisoned silk to the grinding, belching traffic, hordes of dirty men, like poisoned, watered silk to wrap them round. That's one of the more immediately written pieces of the Loba poem. And I maybe can read you something earlier, a little lighter if I find one. This is a poem that people have told me variously is a Loba poem to the muse as a woman. I don't really know that that's so, but or to oneself or to some, I don't know, but here it is. It has no title. There is some sweet woman whose words I have never seen, who springs full-blown into mind. It is as if she had printed a large book and her work was full and satisfied. And she, satisfied in the loves of both sexes, not strung out by the rappel à l'ordre, not straining or excusing herself, or defiant, strident, angry, not pushed out of shape. She has moved gracefully from fleshly maidenhood to the lean delights of the mother. She is serene, with the grace and gentleness of the warrior. The spear, the harp, the book, the butterfly are equal in her hands. There is a woman who is full of grace. Her lap is ample and empty. She is not abstract or sheepish. There are no tendons straining in her neck. Her voice is not milk and honey. It is not harsh. It is a voice. Her voice, she writes whatever suits her. She moves where she pleases. She casts a variable shadow. There is a woman whose poems are bread and meat, hyacinth, nightmare, crepe paper. I close a window. She is not reflected in it, but I see her silhouette against the glass. She is crisp as ice, is soft as Russian vowels. Oh, sweet horror, innocent power, my fiend, perfect fraud, you essence, sniffing my hand. Your inner ear is the acoustic chamber of stars. You commit this poem like a ripe plum I devour here in a desert whose fountain no caravans stream